In the Soviet Union, trucks were essential for industrialization and for the working class. Every Soviet citizen at some point came into contact with these vehicles, which could be found in every corner of the country, from construction sites to the army. But not all of them were successful. In this video, I'll tell you about 5 Soviet trucks that, despite their grand ambitions, ended up being complete failures. The GTU-10, an electric dream that didn't get far. The first of these failures is the GTU-10, a flatbed truck designed in 1961 by the Research and Design Institute of the Coal Industry. Although it initially seemed promising, this truck had a rather peculiar design that made it one of a kind. Based on the ZIL-219, the GTU-10 attempted to innovate in the field of heavy transport by incorporating 2 DC 202B electric motors with a combined output of 172 kilowatts, allowing it to operate in 2 different modes. On one hand, it could function like a traditional diesel truck, and on the other, it could take advantage of trolleybus line infrastructure to move without using its diesel engine, essentially becoming a trolleybus on wheels. This system was borrowed from the MTB-82 trolleybus and featured roof-mounted pantographs to connect the truck to overhead electric lines. In theory, the design made sense. The truck could operate autonomously in areas without electric infrastructure, but once it approached trolleybus lines, it could draw electricity to reduce fuel consumption. It had a payload capacity of 10 tons and a top speed of 60 km/h, making it an interesting vehicle for its time. It was even tested on the world's longest intercity trolleybus route, the 85+ km Simferopol-Yalta line. However, the GTU-10 ran into several problems that ultimately doomed it. The electric motors added significant extra weight, reducing its useful payload by about 2 tons. In addition, its unloaded speed was lower than that of a passenger trolleybus, meaning it was slower than expected. Instead of being an efficient solution, the GTU-10 became a roadblock for other traffic, crawling along the highways. After testing, the vehicle was sent to a trolleybus repair facility in Simferopol, where it was dismantled and modified, fading into obscurity as a failed idea of Soviet engineering. ZIS-151, a military truck that fell short of expectations. Another truck that didn't live up to expectations was the ZIS-151, mass-produced from 1948 at the Moscow automobile plant, named after Joseph Stalin. This 3-axle truck was designed mainly for the Soviet Army, intended to transport cargo, personnel, and tow artillery pieces. It was the first mass-produced Soviet truck to feature dual rear axles, providing greater stability and load capacity. Equipped with a 5.5-liter 6-cylinder engine producing 90 horsepower, the ZIS-151 wasn't particularly fast, but it was expected to perform well in rough terrain. Its 3 driven axles, 3-seat cab, and slatted bench cargo bed made it ideal for the Army, which needed a truck capable of overcoming extreme conditions. It had a payload capacity of 4.5 tons, and its twin rear wheels helped distribute weight for better stability. However, the ZIS-151 had several weaknesses that made its performance disappointing. First, its off-road capability was limited. Drivers often complained that the ZIS-151 wasn't as capable as smaller trucks like the CAS60 which, despite having only 2 axles, had superior traction in mud and snow. Many times, the CAS60 had to pull the ZIS-151 out of difficult situations, as the ZIS-151's rear wheels quickly clogged with mud, reducing traction and efficiency. Additionally, the ZIS-151 had high fuel consumption, up to 50 liters per 100 kilometers on decent terrain. On rough roads, consumption rose even further, making it impractical for long distances. The lack of power steering also made driving in difficult conditions exhausting, especially when using twin front wheels, which required considerable physical effort to maneuver. Despite these drawbacks, the ZES 151 remained in production for 10 years, and its flaws were analyzed and addressed in the development of the ZIL 157, which corrected many of its predecessors' shortcomings. Still, the ZIS 151 left behind a sense of disappointment among Soviet drivers who learned the importance of reliability and practicality in military vehicles. MAZ 510, the simplification attempt that ended in failure. The MAZ 510 was born in 1962 at the Minsk automobile plant. Its creation had a straightforward goal: reduce costs and improve efficiency, a direct order from the state economic plan. The aim was to save metal, make the cab smaller, and improve driver visibility and engine access. Instead of going for a robust and comfortable design, they opted for a simplified dump truck based on the MAZ 503, boasting an MZ236 11-liter diesel engine with 180 horsepower and a 5-speed gearbox. This truck, built mainly for transporting earth and rocks, was never meant to be a luxury machine. It had a 7-ton payload, but despite this impressive capacity, the MAZ 510 failed to win over drivers. The single-seat cab, intended to save metal, turned out to be uncomfortable and inefficient, creating more problems than it solved. Additionally, the unprotected right side of the vehicle increased aerodynamic drag, raising fuel consumption. As expected, the MAZ 510 never made it past factory testing and was quickly discontinued, with several planned modifications never even reaching the prototype stage. CIS 150, the promise that could never be fulfilled. The CIS 150, manufactured since 1943, was a truck that represented a major leap forward for the Soviet post-war automotive industry. The industry needed a vehicle to replace the outdated CIS-V, and it was in this context that the CIS 150 was born. Equipped with a 6-cylinder inline gasoline engine and 90 horsepower, the truck could carry up to 4.5 tons, which at first seemed more than enough for the country's post-war reconstruction needs. However, this truck made many promises, but its execution left much to be desired. The structural problems of the SI 150 quickly began to come to light. The chassis was not robust enough and would deform under normal loads. The stiff springs were fragile and prone to failure, and the transmission system had recurring issues, especially with the drive shaft, which led to the rupture of pneumatic brake hoses and made it extremely difficult to stop the vehicle. Although it was produced for several years, the CIS 150 never lived up to expectations and was withdrawn from the market in 1957 to make way for its successor, the CAS 64. CAS60 Kolkita, an innovative but problematic design. The CAS60 Kolkita was the first Soviet cab-over-engine truck tractor, an innovation for its time, with production starting in 1961 at the Kutaisi factory. Its cab-over design was an attempt to keep up with modern trends, offering a closed metal cabin and seating for 2 people. With a top speed of 60 kilometers per hour and the ability to tow a semi-trailer of up to 10.5 tons, the CAS60 Kolkita seemed like an interesting option for Soviet roads. However, like many other Soviet trucks, this vehicle suffered from a series of problems that prevented it from earning the trust of drivers. The 6-cylinder 120 engine, which originally delivered 110 horsepower, was a problem in itself. Not only did it consume a huge amount of fuel, up to 50 liters per 100 kilometers, but the truck's design was far from ideal. The vehicle's base was small, which made lubricating the rear axle difficult and increased the risk of overheating. Access to the engine was awkward since it was done through a removable cover, and the cab, which was later made tiltable, would sometimes come loose on its own, causing the driver to literally end up flying with the truck. The cab seals were of poor quality, which allowed dirt and exhaust fumes to seep into the vehicle. Despite these flaws, production of the CAS606 continued until 1968, but it never managed to leave a positive mark. Drivers didn't like this truck, and it became a common joke among them. The truck was replaced by an improved model, the CAS608, which tried to fix some of the problems its predecessor could never overcome. If you enjoyed this and are passionate about the world of trucks, you're sure to love this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any videos about these giants of the road.